Welcome everyone to the Health, Happiness and Planet podcast, where we explore different ways to boost your well-being, live a more fulfilling life and protect our planet. This podcast is sponsored by Wave Business Excellence Footprint, the digital training company that cares about your development and the well-being of this planet. You can find the courses for employees and managers under the website www.wave-bef.com. Today's episode is all about how you can adopt specific breathing techniques to improve your health and happiness. I am thrilled to introduce you to my amazing guest from the south coast of England, Tracey Howes, who is a RAID Advanced Freediver and Oxygen Advantage Instructor. Having grown up in a seaside city in South Africa, Tracey is a keen supporter of ocean activities that encourage health and well-being. She teaches science-based functional breathing techniques to improve focus and concentration, enhance mental resilience, improve sleep quality, reduce stress and anxiety, reduce breathlessness and exercise-induced asthma, and finally, support sports trainings. Tracey works one-to-one in groups over Zoom and in person. She also does courses, corporate wellness retreats, workshops, and live events. Ranging from 15 to 65 years of age, her clients include recreational athletes, corporate leaders and teams, small business owners, and teens. Freediving is a form of underwater diving that relies on breath holding until resurfacing, rather than the use of breathing apparatus. Tracey has competed in the UK British Freediving Association Pool Championships and is a member of the AIDA, the worldwide rule and record-keeping body of competitive breath-holding events. The powerful breathing techniques that she's learned in her freedive practice prevent anxiety and stress. This specialized training inspired Tracey to expand her knowledge of functional breathing and enable her to teach others how to breathe efficiently to enhance their physical and mental health. By incorporating functional breathwork techniques into daily practice and training programs, Tracey's clients have transformed their breathing habits to improve resilience and sleep quality, reduce sports-induced asthma and anxiety, train for marathons, and prepare to swim the English Channel. She is passionate about sharing breathing re-education and practical exercises which can be applied in day-to-day activities with meaningful, measurable, and long-lasting results. I am thrilled to introduce you to this amazing guest, Tracey. Hello, Tracey, and welcome to the Health, Happiness and Planet podcast. It's so great to have you here.
Hi, Juan. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Looking at your background, it's just so amazing. I was so interested to learn more about how did you actually get to where you are today, because it's quite impressive looking at your backgrounds. And did you find your passion or did your passion find you?
Wow, that's a really good question. I think it found me, and I say that because I didn't wake up one day and go, I would like to be a functional breathwork instructor. I had no idea that that was something that you could actually do as a practitioner. So I am originally from South Africa. I moved to London quite a few years ago. And I worked in a variety of industries. I'd say most recently I was working in hospitality, marketing, and social media. And for about 12 years, I was working in those sectors, and that was my love. I still really love the hospitality industry. It was very good to me. And back in 2016, I was a few years into my business. I was extremely busy. I actually had 2 companies that I was running, and out of the blue one day, literally out of the blue, I had a severe panic attack. I've never experienced anything like that in terms of health, and so I didn't understand what was going on in my body. I thought I was having a heart attack. I was really anxious. I went to accident and emergency, and the doctors did all the checks, and they said, it was probably a panic attack, but you're okay. You'll be fine. However, that's not the case. So I continued to have these severe panic attacks, which impacted my sleep for about 18 months. I didn't understand at the time what was causing this. And I was recommended to go and partake in a meditation retreat as a way of finding a solution to reducing anxiety, calming my nervous system. And I had never been to a meditation retreat. I had no idea what to expect. So I did my research and I found that this particular retreat was called a Vipassana retreat, which is a non-religious. It's set in a beautiful, natural, very low-key environment. It's certainly not a luxury hotel retreat. It was very much in nature. And it was all about meditating every day for 10 days, silently, with people guiding you. But the premise of the meditation was using nasal breathing to achieve a meditative state. And for me, this was absolutely life-changing. It literally did. I changed my life after this.
How many years back was this?
This was in 2017.
Okay.
What I gained from that experience was understanding the power of breathwork, what it actually can do for the body, the mind. It had a very positive impact on my mental state. My sleep improved. The panic attacks stopped. And I was feeling much more in control of my own being, which was remarkable for me. The clarity of mind you have when you come out of a process like that, when you dial down the noise in your head and you just become very present. I made some life-changing decisions. I decided to relocate. I moved away from London. I moved closer to the South Coast, nearer to my family, nearer to the ocean, which, as you know, is my passion as well. Yeah. And that was the beginning point for me of understanding how to heal the body and the mind. And then I just went into literally a deep dive into researching the power of breathing techniques for one's health and well-being.
That's quite amazing to hear that story and to hear the power of what breath and the way how you breathe can do to your body. I mean, I've been now since 23 years working in the corporate world, and nobody ever mentioned not one word about optimizing the way you breathe to be more calm at work or to be more stress-free in your life. And if I look at management, from now and then you see one or the other being in the burnout, then they cannot come back to work for 6 months, maybe a year until they start recuperating. And I was always thinking, are there things that people can do to avoid to get so far? Even simple things like you just mentioned right now, just by doing proper breathing, that is going to hopefully avoid you to get into a burnout. Do you think that the power of breathing is that strong that you could really avoid going too far when you are being overly stressed at work?
Absolutely. I also think you have to make smart lifestyle choices because we are very much a performance-driven society, and the corporate world is based on performance, targets, and if you don't achieve them, the stress, the anxiety, depression, poor sleep, all of that just starts to build. And what I discovered through my research and understanding how the body works is that when you are in a constant state of low-level anxiety, you have a lot of the stress hormone cortisol in your bloodstream, which causes the heart rate to increase. And it also means that the body is constantly in a state of fight or flight. So the nervous system is completely out of balance. And if you're not sleeping properly, you're not eating properly, you're not giving yourself time to just be and rest, this is all going to take over. And I think that is very much what happened to me, is that even though I loved my job and I enjoyed working at the pace I was working at, my body didn't. And the way the body reacts is it will do something to make you stop. So I think the most important thing is self-awareness. If we're not aware of what's going on in our body and our mind, we can't change anything. So I think that's really where it starts for anybody, particularly in the corporate world, because it's all about, as I say, delivering. But you still can. You just need to learn how to manage that better, in my opinion.
Exactly. Yeah, the self-awareness, I think it's very important because it's something I realized that not many people have. I think everybody has that power, but somehow they unlearn how to have that self-awareness. And I always think that I'm a lucky person because I always had that somehow intuitively in me. So if I would read books about self-awareness, I was thinking, that's weird because that's the way how I do things anyway. But then when I speak about it to my colleagues at work a couple of years back, they were like, what? We don't do none of that. How do you do that? I'm like, well, I don't know either. Sometimes they're just things that one does it by instinct. But before we continue, I have a very interesting question, which maybe not everybody will know what is the definition, is about functional breath work. Because we know what's, a lot of people maybe hear about functional training. They know, okay, that's somehow using my whole body and in the gym. But what is functional breath work, functional breathing?
So the term functional breathing relates to two very specific things. Number one, biomechanics of the body, so how your body moves when you breathe. And number two is biochemistry of the body, so how oxygen and carbon dioxide interact in the blood and how that impacts our breathing. The focus for functional breathing is all around nasal breathing. So we don't breathe in and out through our mouth, we focus wholly on nasal breathing.
Okay. That's something new. It's the first time I heard about functional breathing. And the right terminology, is it functional breathing or functional breath work?
Either or. Yeah.
Either or. Okay. Tell us more about what freediving is and how does the training support stress reduction? For example, I think that's one of the things that also struck me a lot when I saw about freediving, because I think that was probably a shock or maybe a trauma, because when I was a kid, I fell into the water and my parents did not notice until a little bit later. So I don't remember none of it, but all I know until today, when I go underwater, I don't feel relaxed. I get really nervous. So when I see people who do things like what you do with freediving, I'm like, wow, that's for me like having a superpower.
That's such a great way of thinking about it, because our breath hold is like a superpower. Just to give you a very basic definition, freediving is diving underwater, holding your breath without the use of any breathing apparatus. So, for example, surfers, if they go under a wave and they hold their breath, they're freediving. We just extend the breath hold so we can go deeper. So that's essentially what it is.
Okay, very good. And that type of training you then use to support your stress reduction, right?
Well, for me personally, and I probably could speak for many freedivers around the world, because somebody did ask me this and said, you must all be really calm people. But I have to say, you know, when you start learning how to freedive, the key is relaxation. You cannot hold your breath if your body is in a high state of alert. Or you can, but for a very short period of time. And it's interesting what you said about your body has probably remembered that experience from when you were a child, and immediately the panic is setting in because it's not comfortable. In my experience, I came to freediving after I started my breathwork practice, but I had been a scuba diver before, and I found the equipment, the bubbles, everything very noisy, and I didn't enjoy that experience at all. But from a very young age, as a small child, I'd always liked being underwater, holding my breath, playing underwater. So it felt comfortable for me. And when you do breath work and training, a lot of the freediving practice is actually done dry or out of the water first. So getting comfortable with holding your breath. And for many people, that's very uncomfortable. It's not a natural thing to hold your breath for a long time. But I can tell you from experience, anybody, doesn't matter how old you are or what your experience is, you can train your body to extend your breath hold. And what I find when I dive, so if I've held my breath, I go under, you are extremely present because the mind focuses 100% on the fact that you're holding your breath. So you can't have active imagination or crazy thoughts going on because you have to be absolutely in the moment and be calm underwater so that you can continue to swim on breath hold. And I find it a very powerful relaxation for me. I come out of the water and I think you can feel endorphins in the body. You feel really vibrant, you feel really alive, you feel very positive. You have a very positive mindset. And I think if you speak to any freedivers now, you can ask them this question and they'll probably say the same thing, that it has this incredible power to realign your mind and keep you in a very calm state so that you can do and enjoy the dive. Yeah, I absolutely love it.
That's amazing. And from your experience, what is the average with a normal person who has not done any freediving and has no practice on holding the breath? What is usually their time that they can hold their breath?
Very different, because everybody's breathing control is different. For example, today I had somebody in one of my classes who was a trained musician, so he had very good breath control. So I got him to hold his breath and he was very comfortable for a minute. No problem.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody else who's never done it before, has no practice, might hold for 15, 20 seconds.
Okay.
So you start wherever you start, and then with practice and over time, you increase and increase and increase.
Yeah.
But essentially, you get comfortable with the discomfort.
Wow.
Because what's happening in your body is carbon dioxide is building up in your blood. You're not losing that much oxygen. And that's the chemical signal to the brain to keep us alive, to get us to breathe. So you are training your nervous system to be more tolerant to CO2. And in other words, to manage your response to stress better. And that's where this powerful breath hold technique can have a very deep impact on mind and body once you know how to do it.
Wow, that's fascinating. For the freedivers who are experts, how long can they usually hold underwater?
So the world record at the moment for what's called a static breath hold, which is where you literally lie face down in water holding your breath, is 11.5 minutes for men and just over 9 minutes for women.
That's amazing. Somehow I just had in my mind, like if you're more than 6 minutes without oxygen, that somehow your body will not be able to manage it anymore. And I think most people probably will even faint. But it's possible that the human body can really train itself to get to such extremes. It's just fascinating.
We are mammals, essentially. And if you think about whales, dolphins, they all use breath hold when they're underwater. But they obviously can stay under for a lot longer than us. But we have something within the human body called the mammalian dive reflex, which actually, what that means is we have these little receptors around the face. So if you put your face into cold water and you hold your breath, immediately your heart rate starts to slow down. So it's a natural reaction, actually, to calm the body so you can hold your breath longer. So all we're doing is taking this opportunity and maximizing it with training.
Amazing. I'm always surprised at the human body, how it adapts to certain surroundings and environments. For my next question, in today's fast-paced world, many people struggle with staying focused and not having the ability to concentrate for more than a few minutes. Tell us, how does changing the way we breathe have a positive impact on improving focus, concentration, and enhance mental resilience?
Another great question. So in terms of becoming more focused, this is very much going back to self-awareness. If we are self-aware in terms of how our body feels when we breathe, you can experience different techniques in the body to help you become more focused, improve your concentration. And if you say to anybody, in fact, we can do some techniques together if you like, but if you say to someone, focus on the breath, it feels very abstract. It's like, well, I breathe anyway, so what does that mean?
Yeah.
And this is, I think, the challenge of something like meditation, where you sit there and you think you have to empty your mind or listen to music, and the mind gets overactive and it starts wandering all over the place and the breath becomes almost non-existent. So a simple technique to help with focus and concentration is, for example, you just close your eyes, and if you take your finger and you place it under your nose and you try to breathe in and out normally, but as softly as you possibly can, so you can almost feel this warm air moving on your finger. And you repeat this so that your mind focuses on that soft sensation. And once your body is used to how that feels on your finger, you try to replicate that without the finger, just breathing very softly in and out through your nose and imagining cool air going into your nostrils and warm air coming out. And you might even feel a slight tingling on the top of the lip. The key with this is the physical sensation. So when you know how your breath feels through your self-awareness practice, you can actually focus the mind on that sensation, and that's how you improve your concentration, for example. Another way to do it is to focus on movement in the body. So you can place a hand on your chest, a hand on your tummy. You close your eyes, and as you inhale, the chest will rise, the tummy will rise. And as you exhale, you'll feel your body start to soften and the rib cage slowly moving in. So if the mind can focus on that movement or on that soft sensation, it helps with focus, it helps with concentration. And I do many different exercises based on these techniques. But you have to practice it so that it becomes a habit, right? Like atomic habits, you've got to keep doing it.
Correct. If we are starting off, what is your recommendation? How often should one practice it? Just as many times throughout the day when you just try to remind yourself, or you say it's enough if you just do it once in the morning, once in the evening? What is your rule of thumb?
Well, I know everyone's very lazy when it comes to breathing, because if I say to you, you should do this in the morning, in the evening, everyone's going to go, yeah, that's great. And then they won't do it. I know, because I know what my feedback from my clients are. But I think when you are starting to learn, I mean, we're very lucky because we have a lot of apps there that can help us. But it helps to do it with other people. So joining a group, a breathwork group, where every week or every day, whatever it might be, you've got a chance to breathe together with other people. Community makes a big difference. But if you don't have an option to do that, I would say, you can start with 90 seconds. That's it. The less time it takes to make a coffee. Yeah. Slow breath in, slow breath out, but only through the nose, not the mouth. And, we can talk more about why that's so important, but that's the starting point. And as long as you can feel a difference in your body, then you're going to be enjoying it and you'll want to do more. If I say to you, you've got to do it every day, 15 minutes in the morning, who's going to do that?
Yeah, true.
Start small and then you can add and add and add.
Yeah. So at some point of time, should that be more like the default state? Yeah? The way how you just automatically, without even thinking about it, just like driving a car where you don't have to think, oh, that's the sign where I have to do this. That's a sign I have to do that. You just do it automatically.
Yeah. Functional breathing is not some strange out there style of breathing. This is how we should be breathing anyway. So how you breathe when you're awake, how you breathe when you sleep, and how you breathe when you exercise are all linked. So these are the foundational exercises. And then you can go off and do the advanced stuff if you want to. Yeah. But I think for most people, you have to give them very simple techniques in the beginning just to start with. And then,
for example, in my case, I go 3 to 4 times a day out with my dog for a walk. I would then set to myself, okay, my new habit will be that when I walk my dog, I will then focus on my breathing. And if I do that regularly and I start feeling that my body is now actually catching up to the way how I should breathe, will that same pattern also follow when I fall off to sleep, when I'm in bed, that my body will automatically know, okay, now that's the way how I have been practicing to breathe, and it will catch up that type of breathing as well?
It will all depend if you are a mouth breather or not. And the reason I say that is because if you naturally breathe through your nose during the day, it's very unlikely that you will be snoring or struggling with sleep apnea at night. But some people do. They've got very poor breathing habits. It's built up over years and years of poor breathing. So for sleeping, we use mouth tape. And it's not covering the mouth completely. It actually sits around the outside of the mouth and it retrains the myofascial muscles so that your lips close. Because if you're sleeping with your mouth open at night, all the good work you've done during the day is going to go out the window. You need to be able to retrain the body to breathe through the nose at night to get the full benefit.
Oh, that's amazing. I remember now that you just mentioned about that, when I was a small kid, I was probably 4 or 5 years old, and I went to the dentist. And she said that I was actually breathing with my mouth open all the time. And she was like, that's not good. You need to optimize that. And she told my grandparents, because I grew up with my grandparents, she told them, just take a button from any shirt and that I should just put the button between my lips and keep the button there. Yeah. So like when I'm watching TV or when I'm doing my homework, and I was like wondering as a kid, like, why should I keep that button there the whole time? But at some point of time, I just trained somehow my body to just keep my mouth closed. So otherwise then the button will just fall off my mouth. And at some point of time, I did not need the button anymore. And I was always with my mouth closed. So that it's interesting how different techniques, like the tape or that button, that really could help us to do so much better in the way how we breathe.
It's small but remarkable. And there is tape that I use for children, for adults, and also for athletes who want to use it while they are out running, cycling. It really does make a difference.
Excellent. So that means when we are training or when we are in a workout, should we still then focus on doing only the breathing through the nose? Because some people say, yeah, breathe in through the nose and exhale through the mouth when you're doing heavy lifting. Does that apply, or what is your experience there?
With my experience of working with athletes, there's two different protocols. For example, if you are training to run a marathon, you can run a marathon completely nasal breathing, without mouth breathing at all. And that's really, really important, because if you are putting pressure on the body and you're running or you're cycling, for example, but you're mouth breathing, that's going to cause a lot of upper body tension and exacerbate exercise-induced asthma, where you just feel wheezing and you can't breathe properly, and then suddenly it passes and it doesn't happen during the rest of your day. So you can absolutely train in certain cases to just do nasal breathing with very fast-paced exercise. So kickboxing, for example, there's a lot of physical activity, weight training where it's very, very, we're talking bodybuilding, heavy weights.
Yeah.
For very short periods of time, yes, you can breathe through your mouth. And that's absolutely essential, because at that point, it's a requirement for you to complete that form of training. But what we then do with the athletes is that we ensure that when they're not training, using their mouth open, the rest of the 23 hours a day, they're nasal breathing. So they can balance it. But for most people who are not professional competitive athletes, there's no need to breathe through your mouth at all.
Yeah.
So I often get a lot of conflict with that when I say this to people. And then when I work with athletes and they practice it, it takes training. It can take up to 6 months to get comfortable with nasal breathing if you're running 25 kilometers. Wow. Because the nose will stream. It will feel like you've got the worst cold ever, but actually it's just the body resetting and realigning. And when you get into the flow, you get 20% more oxygen when you breathe through your nose. Why wouldn't you breathe through your nose?
And it's filtered air.
Filtered air. And we have this incredible molecule called nitric oxide, which is only produced in our sinus cavity.
Oh, wow.
And it's an amazing thing, because when you breathe through your nose, it's a vasodilator, so it opens the blood vessels, so you get more oxygen-rich blood coming into the body, into the lungs. That doesn't happen if you mouth breathe. And when you hold your breath, you increase the nitric oxide.
Amazing.
So when you put the science next to the practicalities of it, it makes perfect sense.
As our human body is made out of millions and millions of cells, every organ, every tissue, every muscle. And if we can nourish them with nice and rich oxygen, you can just connect the dots and say, okay, that automatically is going to give me more health and more vitality and longevity, probably.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more.
My next question is more for the listeners who have a stressy job. So if they are the whole day working and they are already low in energy and they're going to get back home and they're already feeling anxious that they cannot get everything done throughout the day because they have so many other tasks that they would like to accomplish, and they feel that the tension is already rising, what would you recommend them to do? Is there a simple breathing technique that you would advise them to do so that they could just somehow slow down their adrenals and their stress hormones to be pumping?
Absolutely. What I would say is you have to take a holistic approach. When we look at the body, regardless of whether it's in a work environment, sports environment, or at home with our family. But there's 3 key factors that will influence how you breathe. And that is your lung functionality, how everything is working within the breathing muscles and the body, your mindset, and how you sleep. So the physical, the chemical, psychological, and sleep. And if any of those are out of balance, it's going to have a knock-on effect on the others. So there's not one sort of tick to fix everything. Let's say you're the CEO of your company, or you are managing a team, and you have to have tough conversations, right? Sometimes conflict resolution, performance management, maybe you're going through a buyout, you've got a lot of legalities around that. The mind gets so full, and then actually what happens is the body doesn't know what to do. It's kind of trying to absorb all of this tension and information. And what I always say is there's one exercise that I love that you can use sitting at your desk. And I call it the 4-6 breathing. Breathe in for 4 seconds and you breathe out for 6. So you extend your exhale. So simple, so easy to remember. You do a few rounds of that, maybe when you go and make that cup of tea before your meeting. Slow your breath down. In for 4, out for 6. And what that will do, it will reduce the cortisol in the bloodstream, the stress hormone, calm the heart rate, and oxygenate the brain. So in that moment, you will have more control. You probably will be less reactive if you have to have a challenging conversation with someone, because you've almost taken a step back. You're self-aware, you're building that sense of safety in your body, and that's what you want to give off when you want to manage a situation. You want to show that you're in control, but rather than being defensive and aggressive, calm, measured, and that is the sense that people will get from you, and the response is likely to be more positive. And that's generally what I recommend.
Very good. I was just practicing a little bit just now while you were explaining, and I do feel the difference. Yeah, I just realized when I was starting to do that, I was thinking, wow, actually, a lot of my breath was right now around my chest area, and I was not doing that deeper breath that goes a little bit further down into my lungs. And now that I was doing that 4 seconds in, 6 seconds out, oh, wow, I'm doing it now slightly deeper, and it feels quite good now not to be here with like those short breaths up here in your chest area.
Yeah.
Society where people have to see, oh, I need to look perfect out there. So everybody's trying to tuck in their belly, but that's maybe not even that good for if you want to do proper breath work, I think. Because if I understood you right at the beginning of our conversation, it's actually good that your belly extends now when you are breathing in. Is that correct?
Yes. There has to be movement. And this is what I see with so many people, especially if they love going to the gym, they want to have a 6-pack, they want to have abs, that's all good. You can still have a strong body. But if the abdominal muscles are so tight, because as we know, everything's connected, there's very little flexibility. And it's absolutely vital to have freedom of movement. You know, we talked about biomechanics earlier. Around the rib cage, you've got the intercostal muscles. You've got the obliques, you've got the pectorals, you know, you've got 20 muscles in your throat alone. Everything engages when we breathe. It's just so small, these movements, that we don't recognize it sometimes. So when people say to me, oh, I want to have a strong core, I'll say to them, that's great, but a strong core is not just a tight stomach. It's actually a flexible diaphragm. Because if that diaphragmatic muscle is flexible, it's going to allow the lungs to inflate fully and support the body when you want to take that deep breath, or when you're running and you need more air in your body to motor through. It's really, really key. So I do combine a lot of movement technique based on certain types of yoga practice and qigong, where you allow the body to have flexibility so that you can improve the functionality of the breathing muscles. So we go deep into the science and the movement, but the end result is just feeling good in your body, feeling good in your mind. That's it. That's all we want, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I remember many years back when I did my first yoga course, and it was the first time I did some kind of change in the way how I was breathing. So they did those few exercises. I think it was probably at the end of the yoga course. And I just somehow felt I had so much oxygen in my head, like never before. And I was just like almost hallucinating. And I was singing along to songs in the car and like happy, and people were just looking at me like, what's wrong with this guy? You know, why is he so happy? It was just amazing. And I was thinking, oh my gosh, this just changing my breath here in this yoga class made me like almost a different person. And have you also experienced things like that with your clients?
Absolutely. I mean, I've had people post photographs of themselves on Instagram just saying, this is my happy face after my breath work. You know, you find a level of peace within yourself that perhaps you hadn't known was possible. Yeah. And there is a joy in that. You learn about yourself every day. And if you want to go down that path and use breathwork techniques to support you, you can discover simple pleasures. And for so many people, having some control over their body and their mind, which they've never had before, is very powerful, very empowering. And so people often say to me, I have a very calming, sort of nurturing exterior. And I just think, I've always been fairly chilled out, but the breathwork techniques have definitely helped me manage negative emotions, stress, as I said, anxiety in the past.
Yeah.
It brings me joy as well when I see how happy people are,
Yeah.
So absolutely. It doesn't surprise me that you said that. And I know the exercise you're talking about as well.
Oh.
It's the alternative nostril breathing.
Correct, yes.
I love that one. And it really boosts the oxygen to the brain.
Yeah, and for me, that was just the first time I ever did something like that. And I was like, whoa, what is happening to me? Yes. Those were the days when I was still working in the corporate world and everybody's like super serious and you don't show feelings and things like that. Even though I did, but I still was a very high corporate manager. But then after that session, I was just like a child again. I just felt like 6 years old. And now that I'm not in the corporate world, I do feel that I'm a child again, so I'm very happy. But I'm very curious on definitely trying some of these breathing techniques that we're going to learn here. The other question that I have is, I think that these exercises for breathing, you could probably do it anywhere. But if you would have the choice, would there be a specific place you would say it would work even better if you do it in a specific surrounding?
Well, you can do the breathing techniques pretty much anywhere because I do a lot of work with corporates as well. And, people sit in their office and they want to do something at their desk. They're not necessarily going to lie on the floor. So you can adapt the techniques. But I think you've seen my treats that I do.
Yeah.
My personal choice is always to bring people into nature because you can be in a studio, of course. You can have beautiful music surrounded by plants.
Yeah.
And have a wonderful, wonderful experience. But I feel that every so often, it's really good to get away from your typical place of work or where you live and do something that really feels nurturing. And that could be a walk on the beach. It could be taking the dog for a walk in a field where you are connecting with nature. And you can walk and do breath work exercises. You don't have to lie on your back. You could do walking and breath hold. There's one for you when you do your dog walking next.
Okay.
See if you can do a few walk on breath hold until you feel you need to breathe. Then just breathe normally for a minute. And see if you can do 3 to 4 rounds of that. And how does your body feel? And you'll find with practice, your breath hold gets longer. You get more comfortable. The body, it's becoming more tolerant to the CO2. So there's ways you can adapt, but my personal preference is always near, if possible, the ocean or in nature.
And when I hold my breath when I'm walking, should I first inhale and then hold, or should I just hold once I've exhaled the air? When would be the best time to hold my breath?
So my teaching that I'm very passionate about is based on the principles of the oxygen advantage. So we don't hold on an inhale, we hold on a passive exhale. So what a passive exhale looks like is just a soft breath in and a gentle exhale. Hold. So the body is completely relaxed. There's no stress in the body. And that's how you hold for as long as you can. Because when you hold on a full inhale, you're putting a huge amount of pressure on the nervous system. And that's what we do with freediving. So I'm not teaching people the freediving techniques unless they want to go underwater. For the normal functional breathing techniques, we hold on a passive exhale. And you'll find your body starts to adapt slowly and surely.
That's definitely something I'm going to try out tonight when I go out with my little loved one. Yeah, great. Well, you have mentioned a couple of things, what you offer, but maybe it would be nice to get to know the whole spectrum of what are the things that you offer to your clients and what are the kind of things that you can solve for them. Because many people, I think, come to you with different issues, and but sometimes with those techniques that you show them, you can really fix those root causes that they have. Could you give us an overview of what clients can expect from you?
Absolutely. So I will have people coming to me, for example, who are still recovering from COVID, long COVID, and their lungs have been impacted, COPD, where they have very low lung function. Usually they had medical treatment and they're now looking at complementary natural support to help their bodies to heal. Anxiety, stress, panic attacks, sleep issues. So that can be insomnia, sleep apnea, snoring. If they are athletes, or not even professional athletes, just leisurely athletes, people who love cycling, running, swimming, hiking, they'll come to me to improve their breath hold, and we'll do specific breath techniques to help their body adapt so that they can improve performance. I also do very specialized training called simulated high altitude training, which is where we use techniques that you would use for someone who's going to climb a mountain. For example, I have a client who's climbed Mount Everest, and we use the techniques of reducing oxygen in the body to adapt the lungs so that they improve performance. Wow. I've worked with parents and teenagers with exam stress. How do they manage their anxiety around exam time? I've also worked in the corporate world, so companies that want to really support their staff and give them tools to manage their own emotional state so that they can optimize their performance and really look after themselves and nurture themselves. And sometimes I just have people that are curious. They've heard about breath work, they don't know anything about it, and they want to find out more, so they'll come and see me.
Wow, that's so amazing. I just remembered a very nice show that I've seen when I traveled with my wife to Hawaii. And there they have a Polynesian cultural center. And at the end of this day, they had a beautiful show. It's called Breath of Life. And it had to do regarding the topic breath and about the first breath that people take when they are born in the world. And that when you leave the world, it's the last breath that you take as well. And there was a very, very nice show. And somehow it just came into my mind right now when you're explaining this. and everything in between those two breaths, there's so much that can happen and so many right ways and wrong ways to breathe within that first one and the last one. And what I've also seen in your social media, in Instagram and also in LinkedIn, that you have very nice photos from your retreats, which look fabulous. And you bring your clients back to the roots by making them more connected to nature. Please tell us more about your retreats. And I've also even seen that many times you also have them go barefoot and to be more connected to the planet Earth. Tell us more about this.
Thank you so much for asking that question, because I'm really passionate about that. I watched an incredible film called The Earthing film. You might have seen this. And you and I had a very brief chat about how this works. And it really is all about taking your shoes off and connecting your feet to the ground. And there is scientific evidence around what that actually does to the body. To put it very simply, by connecting the body to the ground directly, we change the electromagnetic balance in our body, and that enables the body to reduce inflammation. And as you know, inflammation is what causes infection and disease. So finding the time to reconnect the body to the earth is really important as part of your whole wellness experience in life. You know, you might never take your shoes off unless you go swimming, you know, if you think about it.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky. I live near the beach, so I can take my shoes off, walk on the sand, feel the earth. But so when I have my retreats, we start in a beautiful space. It's very cozy and it's intimate. And then we take everybody out into the forests or the field, wherever we are. I get them to take their shoes off, and we do a walking meditation with breath hold, barefoot. And we do this in the middle of winter. I mean, everybody in January in the UK, it's freezing, right? Nobody kept their shoes on. I thought they would, but they all took their shoes off, connected to the earth, and it really enhances your sensation in the body. It distracts the mind a little bit from the breath hold, which helps. But I now have clients that will practice this every day. You know, you said to me, what can I do every day to build this habit? If you have access to ground, doesn't really matter what it is, sand, grass, ocean, whatever it is, spend some time and walk barefoot and do some short breath holds while you're walking. You're going to create more nitric oxide in the nose. You're going to oxygenate your body. And you're going to reduce inflammation through the grounding technique. I'd love to hear if anyone does it from this podcast and let us know.
Yeah. It's quite amazing because since the past 15 years, I was researching and interviewing a lot of people, asking them what is it that gives them energy and what is it that also takes away their energy. And that was derived through a question that I had when I was a child. When I was a child, I always wanted to know why some people were happy and jolly in life and other people were just grumpy and in a bad mood all the time. And that was, for me, it was very interesting. I was thinking, but why is that way? Everybody should be happy. And then later on, when I was grown up, then I said, well, let me just do a project. I'm just going to start interviewing people, asking them what makes you happy, what gives you energy and joy. At the end, I had so many data points that I could subgroup them into 6 groups. And I'm actually writing a book about that right now. And one of those groups, it has a lot of subchapters. And one of those subchapters was the topic about grounding and earthing. So I was very curious of thinking, that's weird because I did hear that from time to time. And then later I saw the documentary, the one you mentioned, the Earthing movie with Clint Ober. And I said, okay, everything that I'm going to write in the book, I need to try out by myself. And usually my wife and I, we both try it all out with different eating styles, new habits, just to see, okay, does it do our bodies good or not so good? And the same thing we did, okay, let's try out grounding. And we did. It was just amazing because every day we were grounding, there was such like a resonance towards being grounded that we just felt that our body required it. And it was like my whole body is just saying, hey, can you go out there again? I need to be grounded. And that was then the point of time where we said, let's extend this experiment. It was during summertime. It was in Spain. It was extremely hot. And usually when it's so hot, you just don't want to walk that much because everything is sticky and your feet in the shoes are like all sweaty and stuff. You just want to go back to somewhere cooler. But we said, hey, let's just take off our shoes and see what's going to do now for the rest of the day. And that was, I think, the first day that we were able to walk so much in that city in Spain that when we arrived to the hotel at the end of the day, we were not tired at all. We didn't have any muscle pain anywhere. We felt totally relaxed. And we looked at our steps counter that we always have, our mobile phone, and we were like, holy cow, we had over 30,000 steps that we did on that day, and we were fully barefoot. And then we said, okay, we're going to extend this pilot a little bit longer because it's super interesting, and we have seen quite a lot of changes in our body since we have been doing all that grounding throughout that vacation. And then later on, we went across Europe and we covered 10,450 kilometers barefoot. We went through different cities. That's also part of our book. That's one of the chapters.
I can't wait to see your new book. That sounds fantastic.
And it's so amazing because we were just like the normal person who would try to park the car as close as possible to the entrance to the mall or to the supermarket. But it was all because we were very uncomfortable in our shoes. We had lots of inflammation in our body as well, in our joints. And after going barefoot, all of that just disappeared. And of course, it was not only that, we also changed our diet. We did more movement. We did many, many good things. And now we're going to add breath work to it. So that's going to be, wow. Amazing. Maybe one more question regarding the barefoot and your meditation. How do you do the walking meditation? Is it just being in the present moment? Because one of the things I noticed being barefoot, just like being underwater, when you are holding your breath, like you mentioned today, you really forget about everything else that you have to do because you're right there in the present moment. And the same thing happens when I'm barefoot, but I've never done that barefoot meditation. Could you give us more information on that? How does that work?
Giving away my secrets.
Oh.
No, absolutely. Because I think this is a technique that anyone can do, but it's very interesting because when I do groups of people, we sit down afterwards and I ask them for feedback. And some people absolutely love it and other people find it very challenging, which is very much a mirror to how you're feeling about your life at that moment. Because when you hold your breath and you add movement, you are actually doubling up on the challenge in the body. So it's very easy to sit quietly and hold your breath. But when you incorporate movement, the body has got more to think about. It's got more distraction. So I give them a series of verbal cues. So we get them to take their shoes off. We get them to walk on the grass or wherever we are for about 60 seconds. Just normal breathing in and out through your nose. Let the body start to acclimate to the environment. And then I get them to hold one nostril closed and just walk with one nostril, breathing. Then we swap nostrils. So 1 minute, one nostril, 1 minute, another nostril. And I do that for a couple of minutes. And then we close it with them opening both nostrils and breathing normally, which everyone likes because suddenly they're getting so much air into their body. But what's super interesting is that the people who find it really challenging, it's not the barefoot, it's the sensation of the nostril being closed and not getting enough air in their mind. The ones that feel really comfortable with it are so distracted by nature, the grass, the sun on their face, or if there's a wind blowing, they actually forget that they're holding their breath and they just get into this meditative rhythm. And everybody is so different. And I love doing that because it's a real mirror to your soul at that moment. So I would suggest, other than the short breath holds when you're taking the dog for a walk, when you do your grounding next, do some alternate breath holds on your nostril, each nostril, and see how that impacts your experience with the grounding.
Yeah.
And it will be a very interesting experiment, really, because you learn a lot about yourself in that moment. And then you think, you know what, I might do that again, or actually that's not for me, but you've learned something about your body.
That's right. And then you can decide, do I resonate with it? Does my body ask for more or not? And then you can always guide yourself according to your feeling. But it's definitely something I will try. Fantastic.
And you can do it for as long as you feel comfortable. I don't tend to do it more than 6 to 8 minutes because otherwise it can put a lot of challenge on the body if they're not used to it. Try it. Let me know.
Great. Thank you. And I also encourage those listening to do that as well. And I'm very curious to hear the feedback from those who are going to test it out. And my next question, for people who do not have any severe health issues, but their goal is to sustain their health for many years to come, what would you recommend? Would it really just try to focus what you said at the beginning of our conversation to get that default state where you can get that nice and easy breathing, where you first just have your finger under your nose, where you can somehow already know the regulation, how strong and I'm exhaling and how strong and I'm inhaling, so that I can just make it nice and soft, moving the chest and the belly, with the breathing in and out. Is that more or less the direction you would recommend us?
For starting off, absolutely. These are foundational exercises. But when you have to figure out how it feels for you. So the finger under the nose is one technique, just to get comfortable with how the softening of the breath feels. Your hands on your rib cage, there's a load of different exercises around that. But if your body is not expanding when you breathe, that means there's a lot of rigidity, and that needs to be practiced in order to create more movement. So, as you say, a little bit every day, soften the breath, engage the diaphragm by making sure the ribs move when you inhale and exhale, and learning how to just extend your exhale when you're feeling really stressed, for example. Because stress is not always a bad thing. We need stress to perform. But if it's overwhelming you and you aren't able to function and it's taking over, just 4 in for 4, out for 6. Calm the breathing. Because once the breath is calm, the mind will calm as well. So that's, I would say, is a good place and an easy place to start without it becoming too, like you feel like you've got to do so much work. It doesn't have to feel like that.
Exactly. One should not feel that, this is overwhelming. And and when it gets too complicated, it's like getting a new device in the kitchen, and the manual is like 50 pages. And you're like, okay, I just better give it to somebody else. Just
too hard. No.
Yeah.
We start slow and easy. And you can always find me online and see, and I'm happy to help.
That's perfect, because we actually came to the end of our podcast today, and it just went by so fast because it was so interesting. You have been a very lovely guest for this episode. Could you tell us where our listeners can find you?
Thank you so much. It's been my pleasure. So I am very active on LinkedIn under my name, Tracey Howes, as well as Instagram as Tracey May Howes. And I share a lot of breathwork techniques, my retreat dates if you are in the UK and you want to come and join me. And I also teach online. So I do online courses. I have an online community. If you're not on social media at all, I think you can share my web link in the show notes. I've got a new website coming, so I can send you the details soon.
Excellent. Very, very good. I'll be putting all of those links in the show notes. So in case anybody's driving or doesn't have any place to take notes, I'll have them there. Thank you so much, Tracey. It was wonderful. See you next time again.
Thank you so much, Juan. It was a pleasure. Bye.
Same here. Bye. What a wonderful and interesting conversation. I hope this episode with Tracey has triggered curiosity about how you breathe and how you can incorporate a couple new tweaks that will do magic to your well-being. I encourage you to pick at least one action step from today's episode and see how it positively impacts your energy and happiness. For myself, I'm going to use the technique which Tracey shared with us on the barefoot walking meditations, as well as the breathing technique she explained at the beginning of our conversation. If you want to discover more and feel whether your body resonates with these techniques, then please feel free to contact Tracey. Perhaps we will see each other in one of her next retreats and workshops in an exciting location. In the show notes, you will find all the links on where to find more information and how to contact Tracey. I value your feedback and I would love to hear from you. Please rate, subscribe, and share this episode with your loved ones. Your support means the world to me, and it motivates me to keep producing content that adds value to your life. This podcast was sponsored by Wave Business Excellence Footprint, a digital training company that cares about your career development, your personal development, and the well-being of this planet we call home. On the website www.wave-bef.com, you will find a total of 22 courses. 7 of those are designed for managers and 15 courses are designed for employees who strive to become the leaders of tomorrow. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Big hugs, everyone.